Welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show. Today's guest is no other than Layla Saleh. Layla is a content creator and a thought leader known for her unique blend of spirituality, social commentary, and personal growth. She's here to share her insights on important topics from faith to identity and the challenges we face in today's world. Thank you so much for coming, Layla. It's so nice to have you on the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
Nice to have you. Now, starting with the first question today, something that we really want to know and we don't hear enough about is, tell us how this all started. Why did you start doing podcasts and where did it begin?
Actually, starting the podcast was an accident. It very much happened by mistake. It's a long story, but long story short, Bismillah, is I own a talent management agency and we had a meeting with Meta where they were just going through one of my talent's profiles. And at the end of it all, they were like, do you have any questions? And this was fresh off the boat of October 7. And I was like, what's up with the shadow ban? They're like, you know what, Layla, obviously this is a question that's been coming up a lot. We're gonna hold a panel to address all of your questions. Silence for a few weeks, then we received the invitation from Meta and we go into the offices and it was a panel discussion and God bless the team. I know I come off as very cutthroat and very disciplined, but the team, they're Arabs, you know what I mean? They're our brothers and sisters and they were doing their best to just navigate those murky waters. And I just, obviously being Palestinian myself, dammin hara, I was just a little, a little steamed up and I took the mic and I just kind of said what I wanted to say and I forgot that I'm in a room full of influencers and someone took a video of me. And then I posted that video, it went viral. And one of my talents at the time, his name is Sean, my parents are divorced, the comedian, I'm sure you guys know him. We had a meeting and he was just like, Layla, you could hear a pin drop in that room when you spoke. Just go into a studio and start talking. I called my dad immediately. I was like, do you want to go in a studio and start talking? And he's like, let's go.
So the first topic was about 7th October and what happened in Palestine?
It was about Bismillah, how do I say this? Just my inability to understand how a platform could try to gaslight us into believing that they're on our side. That was the initial thing. And then because I'm very faith-centric. Islam means everything to me. My God, my Prophet ﷺ. And if you're given the opportunity to speak, you should. And subhanAllah, everything always goes back to God. And then by just going into the studio and being ourselves, my dad and I were speaking the way we do at home, the way he raised me. You know, it's always goes back to God. No, anything you go through in this dunya, you can always take it back to Allah and find your solace there. And subhanAllah, I think it just resonated with people, and here we are.
On that note, what's the main message you want to deliver to people through your podcasts?
That's a tricky question to answer, but if I have to be really honest, just how beautiful a relationship with God can be, how amazing our Prophet ﷺ was, how rich our culture is, and that we don't need to look outside to recognize how just powerful and amazing we are. The global south, the Arab world, is just a beautiful, beautiful place to be. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I kind of want to remind people.
And now we just want to ask you, you're always discussing identity. What does being Palestinian mean to you? And tell us about that.
I don't want to cry. It means everything. Alhamdulillah, it is. It's كيف بيحكوا الكذب حبل قصير. That means lying has a very short rope, And also, off the back of that, if you give someone enough rope, they'll hang themselves. And I think as Arabs and Muslims, it was a very tenuous, arduous experience, especially hearing our grandparents' stories, hearing our parents' stories. My mom lived in Nablus for some time. My grandpa is very patriotic when it comes to Palestine. And we just heard the stories, We didn't even bother speaking to people about it because it almost became the norm. You didn't have it in you to fight people. And then when you're faced with what we were faced with October 7, and it was khalas, like I said, do or die, one day Allah will ask you about this. And I refused to meet him a coward,
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to do what you have to do. And being Palestinian is everything to me. It's such an honor. And I love how the tides are changing, how people view us differently. And there is still a long fight to fight, but I've never been happier to fight that fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's such an honor, truly.
You recently sat with Zain al-Rahma, and I'm sure you've discussed this topic with her. Do you think, especially this year, how people view Palestinians in general, did it change through social media? Or do you think we still need to work on that?
if I'm being honest, I don't think we need to work on anything anymore. It's one of the things that I have a very big problem with is I won't justify or excuse my being alive before I even argue why I'm human. And you saw that right after that, where you had to condemn this or condemn that or whatever, and then you had to justify your existence before even saying, I'm human. We actually have more in common than we do differences, and this is where people get it confused. But Zayn has become a quick dear friend. She's just a beautiful angel, and she's one of those examples to me of just a strong Arab Muslim woman, and just by being herself, you know. ترباية أهلها. She just خلص. She's just existing.
She was just really outspoken, and she was so out there, and that's how she started her.
How you see her on camera is how you see her behind the scenes. She really is just that voice, you know, and also she has a wicked sense of humor. I need to give it to her.
That's all Egyptians actually.
She's lovely. She's lovely.
You know, Layla, there's a question that I have for you. Something that I've noticed that really stands out about you is that, you know, other than the fact that you're a really good speaker, you're so in tune with your emotions. And I love it, by the way. I love that, like, you know, you allow yourself to cry, you allow yourself to be emotional, you know, on the camera, in front of people. And nowadays, you know, you guys might not agree with me, but it's so rare to find genuine people. It's so rare.
It is rare.
People don't act like themselves nowadays. And it's like, how do you let yourself be genuine even when you know you're in a room full of fake people? How do you still act like yourself?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
I'm also asking you as advice for myself because I really love that personality trait about you.
So generally speaking, I am against the being over emotional or trauma dumping. I just think there's more to you than your wounds, and you can take that and make it something beautiful. That being said, the two things that will make me cry are my religion and my Prophet ﷺ, and then obviously Palestine. Now these are the two things that just my heart aches, like truly just بينكسر خاطري. And if I need to shed a tear for that, then it's genuinely not something I can control. That being said, I think one of the few things you can control in your life is where you spend your time and who you spend it with. I don't surround myself with fake people anymore. It's just not an option for me.
When did you decide that? Is there something that triggered that for you?
Any other questions?
Yes, of course. So
no, I'll actually answer that. I'm just teasing you. Life triggered that for me. I think one day I just took a look in the mirror. So I'm 29 now. You guys were making jokes about Gen Z. I was like, oh, I'm old.
Oh, no, don't say that.
Millennial. But I'm 29 now and I'm turning 30 in March, you know? And inshallah, by the grace of God, if I'm lucky, I live to 60, 70. So if you think about it effectively, I'm halfway through my life, right?
Yeah.
And I looked at the trajectory of the past 30 years of my life and so much time that I wasted being around fake people, crying, not devoting my time to God and the Prophet ﷺ, not being heavy on my deen, just building that relationship that will غصبٍ عني better my life. That's out of my hands, you know? And I was like, okay, I want the next 30 years of my life to be good.
Yeah.
You know, I want them to be happy. I want them to be prosperous. I want them to be in service of others. I want them to be just meeting the best kind of people that are going to elevate me. So Einstein's definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Amen.
If I was going to stay at the same course that I have been on the past 29 years and take that into the next 29 years, what's going to happen?
So, like, on that note, in one of your videos, in one of your viral videos, you mentioned that I might be the villain in someone's story.
I might be the villain.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Is this a way of you telling people that do not seek people's approvals? Like, just focus on yourself?
It's not. So it's an interesting topic because where do you arrive at a metric of what is right and wrong? In my case, it's God, the Prophet ﷺ, and our book. Our religion, our teachings, it tells me right from wrong. And as inshallah, a good Muslim, what you try to do is apply that to the best of your abilities. So that teaches me where my rights end where yours begin. So you know what I mean? Once those lines are clear, يصير اللي يصير بعده. I hurt your feelings, you hurt my feelings. In the grand scheme of things, feelings aren't the most important thing. So if you cross a boundary and I put you عند حدك, and now all of a sudden I'm a villain, so be it. عادي. What's that meme? You're a clown in mine?
You're a clown.
Right, like I don't mind being the villain in your story because you're a clown in mine. خلاص, such is life, you know?
Yeah.
You, villain.
Just today morning, we were just discussing the difference between venting or gossip.
Ooh, yes, we were. And basically what I told her is that with gossip, like if I heard that someone was talking about me, but they were actually complaining about something really bad that I did, I would forgive them because I did something so bad that I triggered you to vent to someone, because the heart is like that. When you get so triggered to the point, you just start venting. But if it's you spreading stuff I told you that's personal,
definitely
that's when I
gossip.
get angry.
So those are two very different things. And one is done out of hurt and one is maliciously done with intent,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So, but you also said a great point there. You said if that
hurt
were to
you.
happen, I would forgive you. It takes a lot to be that bigger person and recognize you've hurt someone. Many of us don't. Because we've all hurt someone. We've all been hurt. But subhanAllah, and this is something I talk about all the time, everyone seems to be the victims. This Tom, Dick and Harry did this,
Every
and that
single
to me.
person is a victim. I never wronged anyone. I am the victim in the story.
Exactly.
It's one of the things I really ask people to try to get to know them. What's the worst thing you've ever done to someone? And many a time I hear crickets, silence. No one wants to acknowledge. Your subconscious sweeps it under the rug, you know? But one is done من غلة قلب كسرة خاطر, you know? That's a very different thing. ومعلش.
Exactly.
So that's the point on accountability, basically. So as if you take accountability and basically put boundaries around yourself. Do you think in this time and age, people might take it as you being the villain and withdrawing yourself from people, like cutting off people because of that?
Yeah, of course. People can always misconstrue anything that you do, but I also reach the point not to be funny, but if you don't pay my bills, shut up.
Oh, preach.
Like I've just reached the point where it's like, خلاص, يعني, you don't have that much of a say in another person's life, and also we're each allowed a certain level of strictness, but also empathy. You know, if I have the need to retract, then I have the need to retract. If you have the need to retract, then you have the need to retract. And it's why I think it's Gabriel Ruiz's book, The Four Amendments. One of his amendments is don't take anything personally.
Oh,
Don't take anything
wow.
personally.
Don't take, and it could be
That's
so
really
personal.
true.
Can you say the
It's
the name of
projection
that book
sometimes.
again?
It's the Four Amendments, if I'm not mistaken, and
Four
it's by
Amendments.
Gabriel Ruiz, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
I'm
And
writing this down.
One of the amendments, one of the rules that you need to apply, therefore, is don't take anything personally, and it can be so hard because a breakup, or God forbid, a parent passing away, or your friend literally backstabbing you. What could be more personal? But subhanallah, even that you don't take personally.
Wow.
It's not affecting you personally.
I have a question for you, and when I ask this, I ask you this as a Muslim. Now what we're seeing is it's so easy to stray far from Islam. It's so easy, especially like in the century that we live in now. How did you, because you speak about deen a lot, and I think it's so beautiful. What actually made you get closer to your deen? Because you said there was a time you weren't.
No,
So
I've always
what-
been heavy on my deen.
Okay.
I've
Nice.
always been heavy on my deen. I was raised very Muslim-centric. My dad, but in a different way. My dad would always share stories, and he would cry. He'd speak about the Prophet ﷺ, he'd cry. He'd speak about the Sahaba, he'd cry. He'd speak about Ali, Hassan, Hussein, and he'd cry. And it got to the point where I almost became, and I use this word very carefully, it's the only time I'll use it, almost jealous and envious of that love and that bond that he had. And I was like, I want that sense of belonging, that sense of whatever life throws your way, Allah is my anchor. So I've always been heavy on my deen. That being said, I've been distracted a lot. A lot. You know, life gets the better of you sometimes. But subhanallah, God kind of forces you back on your knees back to Him.
Yeah, and I definitely think that friends have a role to play with it. So
100%, your
I made a
environment
best friend 2 years ago, and something that I always struggled with is I don't pray when I go out. It's really difficult for me to do it. And this
What do you
friend,
mean you don't pray when you go out?
as in, I find it difficult to like get myself to a masjid, get myself to a praying room. And I made
tamam,
this
yeah.
one friend, when we go out, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, they stop at a masjid. I cannot tell
Oh,
you
that's really, yeah, it
how many
affects you.
masjids I've like prayed at in Dubai because of them.
That's
it's
an amazing
so
thing.
crazy. I've gone to so many, and up until I met them, could you believe that there was only one masjid I visited in my life, and that was a masjid in my school? So
Really?
truly, it was only that masjid because something I was always told is that, you know, it's men who usually go to the masjid. It's not women. But then because of that one friend, I visited so many masjids and I saw so many women and I connected with so many people there. So I definitely think that your friends, like your environment, other than your
Affects you, yeah.
parents, have such a big role to play in it.
Absolutely, you are the company you keep, and you are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. It's an interesting one because I think all all of us, when we're younger, we also go through the people-pleasing phase. We want to be popular, we want to be liked, we want to be invited to every social event. And it's so easy to lose yourself in that, especially through the growing pains of becoming a young adult and so on and so forth. And I went down that rabbit hole of bad company, and it was very humbling, very, testing, trying. But subhanallah, C.S. Lewis, I think he's a Christian pastor or a priest or something, and he says, what does he say? Experience is the most difficult of teachers, but you learn, my God, you learn. Something along those lines. I butchered it. And sometimes Allah thrusts you in a tornado just so you learn. But it's okay, and that's fine, but learn. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have to give a shout out to one of my friends, Sarah Al-Hagroubi. She is my, honestly, a true friend. She's been a great impact, and she's one of those people that just come into your life and subhanallah just better you, just elevate you, just bring you closer to God.
That's the type of people that you need in your life.
Yeah,
really,
she's really wonderful, and very few friends, but very happy with it.
Would you say that we're slightly straying away from our own culture, our own identity, our own spiritual growth because of the Western influence and social media? I would argue yes before. I would have said yes. I would have told you absolutely. There was a period of time, especially with the Kardashians and all of that, where we were, honestly... And Netflix, I think it plays a really major role.
Yeah.
Everything plays a role. You know what I mean? There's so many things that play a role, and it's done by design. Certain things are shoved down our throats very much on purpose and very much by design. But subhanAllah, sometimes it takes a tragedy to bring people together. And since we've seen all the uprisings and everything that's happened with Palestine, it's almost as if people had this spiritual awakening where they're like, khalas, enough is enough. I don't need to look outside. We have so much good to offer, and that's why I love people like Zain Rahma, like my friend Sarah Al-Hagroubi, like Huda Katan just had an interview with Mehdi Hassan, and that woman did not stutter. If that woman didn't stutter, she was like, I don't want your blood money, and she meant it, and she said it again, and she didn't stutter. You know what I mean? So we have so many people, عنا, من بلادنا, من أدياننا,
there are such powerful people.
Just voices to look up to emulate, to embody. I think you guys also had Fadi Musallat on the show. He's one of my dearest and oldest friends.
He's so inspirational, mashallah.
What he does with the giving family, it's beautiful. They're doing it now every Sunday until, inshallah, the month of Ramadan, where we do it every day. He also didn't stutter. He was like, DJ Khalid, yalla, salam alaikum.
Although they're blood related also.
Didn't stutter. So I'm not going to stutter. Because one day I will meet my maker and he will ask me, why did I stutter?
Yeah. Exactly.
Did you do your part, basically?
Just that simple.
And just as a final question for today for you, you give a lot of advice, but if there's one thing you would want young women to really think about, what would it be?
If I say
one thing, like
this
specific point, it's the one thing that they should always use as a moral compass. It should always be there.
In the Quran, I think it's Surah Al-Baqarah, it says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عَبْدِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِي. It means, if my servant asks you of me, tell them I am near. I answer the prayers when I am called upon through prayer. And that is my biggest piece of advice, no matter what happens, no matter how far you think you stray, no matter how lost you think you are, no matter how hurt you feel, just go back to God. I promise you, everything follows suit after that. It's just, and it is that simple. It's one of the hardest things you'll do, but it's just the most...
My heart.
Yeah,
my heart. I felt it in my heart. I really did.
Alhamdulillah.
Layla, it was really nice having you on the show. Thank you so much for coming. It was a really pleasure.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you for giving us this in real life experience. I always say that I always watch your podcast. So to be on that other side of it, hearing it in real life, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
And thank you much for having us. So we go live every day at 8:30 a.m. So make sure to tune next Wednesday. And bye-bye.